All right, we're going to start and call the July 11th, 2023 Greenup City Council meeting to order with roll call.
Mark Harris,
Here.
Steve Greenup,
Here.
John Norman,
Here.
Bruce Mance,
Here.
Doretha Hill,
Here.
Jamie Gillum.
The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes. Someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second.
Have a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Bruce Mance,
Yes.
John Norman,
Yes.
Doretha Hill,
Yes.
Mark Harris,
Yes.
Steve Greenup.
Yes. Before we go to the audience, Richard's asked to go next. He's got a prior engagement that he's got to get to, so.
I've got a, floodplain construction permit from the library. Put some field dirt back on. I just need a motion to approve this.
Is that where they tore the house down?
It is. They had to
Okay.
take,
Just take a quick look.
they had to take the cap off of the dirt there because the house was such bad shape and there was so much stuff in the house that they had to remove some of the dirt. And if you drive, well, I don't know if you can see it now because they've already got dirt piled down there, but it was kind of like a sway where the house set at.
Yeah, I
So,
went down and saw it that
only
night.
thing he's doing is just filling back in with topsoil. I'm not sure what the library's intentions are yet. Don't even know if they know yet.
It's 100% better than what it was.
Yeah.
Just need a motion to approve the application.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second to approve the Greenup County Library's floodplain permit. Is there any discussion? Excuse me. Roll call.
Bruce Mance,
Yes.
Steve Greenup,
Yes.
John Norman,
Yes.
Doretha Hill,
Yes.
Mark Harris.
Yes.
All righty, thank you. Appreciate it. Dave Block.
When Jeff Hearn was supposed to left, I still don't understand how that was filled. According to the books, LRS 83A, it was not done right. It's done illegally, what you done. I don't know how you skip that section in the book.
What I would do is I would refer, having a question, I would refer that to, that. I'm not sure what KRS you're referring to. Do you have it?
Yeah, I got it. You should have a book in there with it in it.
I do. I just don't have
Okay.
it with me. Can you care to read it?
No, I'm not gonna read it. You guys read it and understand, so you can
Well,
understand
there's
it.
no doubt that, I mean, the city needed to appoint someone,
Yes,
and they did, which was
Yes.
fine, right? And then after that's done, two things happened. When he resigned, I notified the Secretary of State, Office of, Local Government, Governor's Office, and the county clerk that he'd resigned.
okay,
And then when we filled the seat, I notified them that they'd been filled. And after that, then it's up to the state agencies to move forward with that, with anything else that has to happen, like an election. It's up to them. We certainly are perfectly within our bounds of law to have filled the seat when it became vacant, because if we hadn't, then the governor would have filled it 30 days later, because that is no doubt the law. Now, if you're talking about an election,
yeah,
okay, if there is going to be an election, it would only be to fill the last year of the term,
right,
all right?
Right.
So, obviously, there's not gonna be an election till November, right?
yeah, there
But,
is. Not down here, but there is an election this year.
There's not gonna be one till November, is
Right,
what I said.
right.
Okay,
Okay.
right, yeah,
Uh-huh.
right, yeah, I didn't say there wasn't gonna be one, I said there's not gonna be one till November. But that's up to your county clerk to get that on the ballot. It's not up to us, we don't control the ballot. So,
Well, when the county clerk receives a letter that says it's already been taken care of,
the county clerk got a letter that said that the seat was filled.
he said already filled.
Now, if there's a complaint about whether or not it's on the ballot or not, I'd direct you to go down to the county fiscal court meeting and talk to the county clerk. All right? That's where it needs to go, because I have no doubt that we're right to have appointed someone immediately to fill the seat. The only question is, how long does he sit there?
That's right. But
That's right.
did
So
Jeff,
nothing illegal was done, we can agree on that, can't we, Mr. Black?
part of it?
No, all
Part
of
of-
it.
no,
we
no,
can-
no, no, no,
we
no,
can
no.
agree on all of it, because you said it on our little Facebook here, and there's nothing illegal that's been done. There's not. Once that's taken care of, the city's done its part, we've notified who we're supposed to notify, and then it's up to the state officials and the election board to deal with any election that comes after that.
Okay,
It's up to them. I don't think it's up to us.
when Jeff resigned, he did not resign the legally way.
He did resign a legally way because he gave a letter of resignation that was effective the very next meeting. That's all he had to do.
Who did he give it to? He didn't give it to
Gave it
council?
the city.
He gave it to,
Did.
I was here, that meeting. He didn't get turning in.
I'm not saying to be corrected, but I feel pretty certain he gave a letter. of
Lundy pulled a
resignation.
piece of paper out of his pocket and said he resigned.
No, I pulled out a piece of paper.
I was on
that
Mr. Branham
It
too,
was Mr. Branham.
Yes. but he did not legally resign.
Jeff Hearn turned in his resignation. Did he give it to you or to me? To her?
But it's supposed to go to the council so they can approve it.
That's not true. When the resignation is given by a council member or a mayor, it's effective the very next meeting. And that's when it was effective.
That ain't what the
Meeting
book
gets
says.
called. That's not right.
Oh, okay, the book's not right then.
Well, maybe it's not, but the law is that when a council member resigns their seat, it is not effective or it is effective the very next meeting when it's called. And so the city was within its rights to, at that point, go ahead and appoint him, or anyone else if they wanted to.
Well, that's the difference between you and another attorney. The county attorney said it should be an election.
Well, there wasn't and isn't an election till November, so we can all agree that there's no election to be had yet.
Well, yeah. But it's
And
too
so
late
are
to,
you trying to say that the seat should sit vacant until,
no, he could serve out till the November.
but we're not at November yet, so what are we?
So how you
arguing
gonna have an election with nobody on the ballot?
Well, that's why you gotta go talk to the State Board of Elections and your county clerk, because that's their.
Okay, I'll be county clerk's office tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
absolutely, go down and speak to Mr. Imel and see. I mean, I don't, if I thought I could make that happen, I would,
Mhm.
okay? But I can't and no one in the city can, because we don't control the ballot. I mean, that's up to someone else. We don't run our
Okay.
own elections, whether we want to or not.
Okay, I got one more question. You guys voted to put the next highest vote getter on the council.
Let me address
Go right ahead.
I'll address that question. I thought I was doing the right thing. I went down to the county clerk's office. I had Andrew pull the ballot. Well, I misinterpreted the data on it. And that was my fault, and I didn't mean I was doing what I felt like was the right thing to do in my heart. But I screwed up, and that is my fault for stating that fact. But he did have a letter of intent on file, and we had no other letters of intent.
Wait,
So I made-
right there. When they run for election, that was a letter of intent. When they
No,
filed for the,
He
for
had
the
a
seat,
letter-
that was a letter of
He had a letter
intent.
of intent to fill the vacant position, not to
What-
run the race.
Jeff
Stephen,
Hearns had his house up for sale for 10 years.
I don't know
How
what
did
the
people on
argument's
the other
about
end
because
know that he
Mr.
was
Brandon
selling his
did it.
house? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what the argument's about because
well,
Mr.
the argument is Phil Dorn was next vote getter.
All I can do is apologize for the misinformation which I unknowingly did give, and that is my fault. So
So-
I'll take
so-
responsibility for that. But as far as legally how everything happened, I think Stephen explained everything was done
right. It
correctly.
just was. There's no obligation on the part of the city to pick the next highest vote getter.
That's true. That's true. But he made the motion to pick at the next highest vote getter, and everybody agreed to it.
If you want him ousted, call the Attorney General's office, Mr. Black, because they're the only person that can, the only agency that can oust a councilman. There is nothing that this council or the mayor can do to remove Mr. Branham as an officer, if that's what you're suggesting needs to be done. They can't do it. And we can talk about
This-
it all night, or we can move on with meetings.
This council
but
and
that's-
members knew that night that Mr. Phil was the second highest vote getter. There was the rush to put Mr. Branham on. They knew that night and early that next morning. So how did we skip
I
him?
did not know that night. I personally went and apologized to Phil the next morning. When I did find out, I got a letter taped to my door that said, basically, you screwed up. And then I went and I called Andrew, and I had him send me a copy, and I looked at it, and I did. I screwed up. So I went to Phil, and I apologized to him. There were several other people in the county or in the city that had some issues with that, and I went to them and I apologized to 2 other people. I think I've done my part to let everyone know that it was an honest mistake.
What was the rush to,
Nothing more.
what was the rush? You had 30 days to fill the seat. What was the actual rush to fill the seat?
I think we didn't have a meeting before that was the last meeting we were gonna have before it. The state-
If memory serves me correct, that was the next regular meeting was gonna be after the 30 days, and I had quoted, I believe, go back and look at the video, that if we done it, then we'd have to call a special meeting.
So,
But however, Steve has been appointed, and there's no law that states that you have to accept the next highest vote.
I understand that.
So they could have appointed anybody that they wanted to have
Yes, sir.
appointed.
But when you make a motion to do the next highest one, and everybody agreed to it, that was a motion.
I only made a motion to appoint him. I stated why I felt like he should have been appointed. That was not part of the motion. All I said was, I made a motion to appoint Stephen Branham to fill the seat of Jeff Hearn. I did not say, I explained my reasoning, but that was not part of the motion.
You said,
Again,
let's get the
with all due
highest vote
respect,
getter,
everyone, it's
And Marty
a pointless
turned it down.
debate Because.
and then you
he's
skipped
appointed,
one.
And the only
And then you
way
went to
it
him.
can be ousted is if the Attorney General files an action. So if anyone feels that strongly about it, you can call the Attorney General and he can sue Greenup and oust Steve Branham. And
Okay.
I'm not saying that that should happen or that it would work, but that's the only way that's gonna end up happening.
Well, my main thing is, what was the rush? I mean,
Well,
every
my
time
main
we,
thing
no,
is-
I'm not talking to you or about
David,
you.
Well, I'm talking to you. My main thing is why are we still talking about it? Because there's nothing.
Because I feel that was wrong,
Well,
and you know
said
it was
that.
wrong.
You said, I don't know it was wrong, number one, don't put words in my mouth, okay?
You trying to put some in mine?
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is, why are we still talking about it? I mean, really, what's the point?
Well, one thing, the way it was
No,
done.
I'm tell me what's the point?
Well, one thing, if it was done correctly, the people of Greenup would vote on that vacancy in November.
No one's saying that except you, that it wasn't done correctly. And you said
I'm
you
the
were
only
gonna
one to
go
come here
talk
and
to
say it.
Andrew Amo tomorrow.
I'm the only one to come here and say it.
And you're gonna go talk to Andrew Amo tomorrow and see about the election, right?
Yep,
Well, then, call me. We got each other's phone number. Tell me what it says.
I know.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we need an election, we have an election, you know?
No,
big
not
deal.
after 160 days you won't. And you know that for a fact.
I don't know that for a fact.
It states right there in the book.
I don't know that for a fact, Dave.
All right, we're gonna move along.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Eric Patton.
You guys, this is my 5th meeting for today, so if you can hear me, I'm just gonna sit here. I'm tired of
That's
sitting in
fine.
front of microphones. I worked for Five Area Development District for 15 years. I did a lot of work in utilities in that time. Toward the end of that term, I did a lot of work with grant writing. As of July 1, I left my job at FIFCO, and I now work for Bobby Hall's office. I'm still doing the same thing. I do a lot of grant writing, project management, project administration. Still predominantly focused in utilities because that's what I know until I expand that. So I'm more just here to introduce myself to you guys. I've known Lundy for a long time. I've known Steve for quite a while.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to kind of get to know the rest of you guys, and I'll be here in and out. I have 3 council meetings tonight, so I probably won't be here very often. Tuesday's the worst
It
of
is.
the month for me. So I get to do this 3 times, so I'll probably be here till about 6:30. But if you guys need me, I'm on the first floor of the courthouse, Bobby Hall's office. If you come in that side door is on the right, mine's the first office on the left. If you guys need anything, feel free to stop in, have a chat with me. We can talk about what's going on, some of my past, some of the things that I'm used to seeing, and kind of get going. So I look forward to working in Greenup County. I've been working here for 15 years, but I'm a little bit more focused now.
And we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Excuse me again, I didn't catch your name. What was your?
Eric Patton.
Okay, thank you.
And I haven't got my business cards yet. I'll make sure you guys get some of those when I get them. Unless you want an old FIFCO business card, I've got a whole box of them in the back of my car. But it's good to meet everybody. If you have anything, you have any questions for me anytime, just let me know.
All righty, thank you. New business. I have a seat on the Appalachian Foothills Board, and I also have a representative for the Appalachian Foothills Board. And I was contacted by them, and they are requesting Philip Dowdy to serve on that board as well. He's, as you all know, active on various other boards as well. Philip will do a good job. The Appalachian Foothills Board only meets 4 times a year anyway. Our next meeting is in September, so one thing I need is a motion to concur my appointment of Philip Dowdy to the Appalachian Foothills Board of Directors.
I'll make a motion.
Second it.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Roll call.
Jamie Gillum,
Yes.
Doretha Hill,
Yes.
Bruce Mance,
Yes.
Mark Harris,
Yes.
Steve Brenham,
Yes.
John Norman.
Yes. Now, before we get into the brunt of today's business, I will let you guys know that the Worthington property has been torn down now. That one we just passed the floodplain permit on, and 14th and Lincoln Avenue has been torn down as well. Now we want to turn it over to Michelle and Tony Grubb with Governmental Solutions, and they're going to talk about your utility rate study and the first reading of your ordinance.
Sorry, I'm not customing microphones. We started with the rate study, and the purpose of this study was we wanted to project your expenses through fiscal year 26 and adjust utility rates adequately to cover your expenses and the debt service for needed infrastructure improvements at the water treatment plant, including the water intake. The city, as you know, has an obsolete water treatment plant and an inadequate intake system. It was a floating intake system that was built as a temporary one 20 plus years ago. The city has completed engineering on both a permanent intake system and water treatment plant. They've got the preliminary drawings. And I commend you all. You all have known this, you've planned it, and the engineering portion of this is you ought to applaud yourself because you all have done it all with cash. You all have paid as you go, and you all got to the point where we're ready to start with construction some of this, and you all have done that with borrowing no money. I don't think many cities can say that, so I applaud the financial management and the planning where you all have done to get here. So now it's time to build and plan for the future. So to do so, we had to look at the utility rates for we can, do some more financial planning to get ourselves to a point where we can build the intake system first. So that's what this study does. In addition to this, we were thrown a wrench ball like everybody else with inflation. We've had to deal with rising prices, which hit the utility industry harder with chemicals and pipe prices. And, and the last thing that you all have had to address is your cost of labor to keep the talent that you have running our system. So with that, we had to, take the expenses and project them to get to the point where we can start paying debt service. And with inflation and, the unknowns, we chose to end this at a 3-year period where, we think at the end of the 3 years, we'll have the intake system, I don't know how close we are on it, built or have the finances in place to get that built. And in fiscal year 26, this takes us to where we can pay the debt service on that. So that's like a quick overview of why we did the study.
And I'll add that the blueprints for both the intakes and the water plant has already been submitted, and both have been approved by the Division of Water.
And the mayor did, we probably could have started building sooner, but with the inflation that we were dealing with, we wanted to, try to time this better where, we're not, pipe prices have started to go down some. And with all the money that was flooded into the system with grants, construction, when there's a lot of work, construction costs more. So turn to your book. We have an ordinance, and the first thing that we'll go over, though, is the study. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to stop me. I will gladly answer. We wanted to give this to you and go over it. That way, when you took it home and had time to digest it, you had an overview of us. And after this, if you have any questions, feel free to call us. We will answer. We want everybody comfortable with where we are.
Okay. First thing I just want to ask you, I don't know if everyone knows, you said a debt service, like debt service. You're talking about the work. Explain what that is exactly.
We, even though we were lucky enough, and I've worked with governments my entire career. I've never seen one, especially one your all size, that does not have to borrow to do something. And we did not have to borrow to do the engineering. So, but to actually construct, and I think the estimated cost of it is about $4 million to construct the water intake first, because we got to have the intake system before we build the plant. We're going to have to borrow money. And when we borrow money, we're going to have a debt service payment on it, kind of like you do your car. So that's going to be your debt payment.
I just want to make it clear. I knew what you were talking about. I didn't know if everyone understood what you were talking about. So that's the reason why.
No, any questions? Any questions is good. The first page, we have a table of contents. And with the table of contents, I'm going to go over the first section of that. is the executive summary. We did the study to determine the water revenue requirements. We looked at the cost of services and equitable rates that will maintain the utility system on a physically sound basis for the next 3 fiscal years. This review was conducted using historical and projected data on operating and non-operating expenses, debt service, and capital requirement projections. And our main 2 capital projects will be the intake system. Once it is done, it'll be the water plant, and they may run concurrently. The rate analysis that we have and that we've included in the ordinance is rates that will go span from the year 24 to 26. As a background, you all produce and distribute water to sell to residential and retail customers. 473 of those, or 11%, is inside your city, and 3,695, or 89%, is outside your city. You all are the regional water provider for the area. Your total customer base is 4,168. Your water plant is your main production facility for the customers. But we find ourselves, and we've had to deal with, we've relied some on Canonsburg to be able to provide water. The Greenup water plant draws water from a fixed and a floating intake structure located off the Little Sandy River. The plant was built in 1976 with upgrades through the present day. The water treatment plant has numerous operational issues such as electrical, mechanical, and general infrastructure, to name a few. The water treatment plant needs repairs or modifications to meet current drinking water standards per the Kentucky Rural Water Association. Kentucky Rural Water Association has recommended major facility improvements for the purpose of stabilizing water treatment to avoid further fines from the Division of Water and to prevent further deterioration of the facility. The Greenup utility system has been monitoring its production levels, operation and maintenance costs, debt service, and its reserves over the last several years. The most recent review that we did was in 2016. The financial and billing data is discussed in this review was provided primarily by the City of Greenup. The expenses presented are known and measurable with documentation from financial statements, utility work papers, audit, and calculated assumptions. So we put out some assumptions, is the next section. And with assumptions, your customer base, although we're adding some in South Shore, probably grows about 13 per year. So until we can actually, and we went back to 16 to look historically, you probably lose some, gain some. The next assumption was inflation. So this is probably what took a good part of our time, is trying to project what things are going to cost, because as you all know, they've been crazy and extraordinary things that you never think. We took the personnel cost, and your contract is over 4 years, so it was pretty much fixed once you all adopted the contract, because we know what their raises are going to be. So we did an average of 2% for personnel and professional services, 5% for health insurance, 3.5% for operating expenses, and 7.5% for utilities, and that's an average. So we took your current expenses and we projected all your costs that you have up through 2026. Depreciation expense is an expense in this type of fund, and it's assumed to remain relatively constant through the first part of the review. But once we get the water treatment plant and intake completed, depreciation will increase. The city currently pays debt service on various related debt issues ranging from revenue bonds and note payable. the annual level of debt service is assumed to remain constant through the first year of the review. The second year, in fiscal year 25, is when we think that you will actually have to take out debt for the intake system. But the debt is not usually due until it's complete, especially if you went through KIA. They do not want their payments until it's substantially complete. So we don't put the debt of $375,000. The intake is estimated about $4 million. So on current interest rates, we project the debt service payment would be about $375,000. So once we do that, we're going to have to add the water treatment plant. So we're looking at about $28 million for both. So once we get the water treatment plant online and have to finance either through bonds or KIA, whichever we all seem to be the most appropriate at the time when we get there, you're looking at debt service payments of $1.6 million. So what we're doing is we're preparing you to get there financially, starting out with this 3-year period. And we don't know what construction costs are going to be when we get to do this. And we can't even, go further, I think, than the 3 years at this point. So the city's operating cash position in our operating fund was about $33,000 when we did the study. Something that this will do is, and we've had high expenses of fixing the tank out of Route 1, and chemical costs have went up about 60%. And, we just ratified the union contract, which, considerably, the salary you're paying out has increased. So, the basic rate structure allocation method remains unchanged. So we kept the same little columns when we looked at the rates that you currently have. We just adjusted them for the outcome of what you need to pay your expenses. The city's utility rates, when we go to the findings section, were last modified in 2021, but it was only a slight CPI adjustment then. We had no idea, what the economy would go towards. When we also, the city's utility rates, as they currently stand, cannot fund the new construction of the wastewater plant. And existing rates do not fund any capital replacement that you may have. And they also do not fund depreciation reserves or adequately cover the inflationary operating expenses. A utility system is very capital intensive, and you have to keep things upgraded to keep it going. So our recommendations of the study was to adopt the proposed water rate modifications. These rates will adequately provide for operating cost, existing as well as proposed new debt service and depreciation expense, and it allows for the funding of reserves for an unscheduled expense. So when we say depreciation expense, we want to get you in a financial place that if that pump station goes down, you all can write a check to pay for it. You all don't have to borrow. Borrowing money is expensive to your citizens and your customers. So if we can save a little each month and prepare for, something's going to break, it's going to happen. It happens at our homes, so it certainly happens at the city. So we want to get you in a place where you can go out and have the money to fix something. Like we did that with the tank out Route 1. Lundy was able to pay for all of that and not have to go out and borrow.
You're talking about reserves for replacement.
Yes. So on page 6, we do a little introduction, and it talks about the results of the rate study and financial analysis. On 7, we did tables of what your current rates were. Your current minimum bill is $24.14 for 2,000 gallons and $33.22 outside the city. Greenup, in addition to water sales, also generates, a small amount of additional revenue through operations from various fees and services provided by the water utility. But we stuck with to make the rates cover your expenses. These additional stuff will just basically replenish your operating cash. We want to get you to the point where you have 90 days of operating expense on hand. So on 7, we projected your revenue with existing rates. And you see with, 13 new customers a year or 40 over this study period, the revenue doesn't go up a whole lot. So we did some approaches to determining your revenue requirements, and we used a hybrid approach. We looked at your operation and maintenance expenses, what your debt service would be. We looked at some of your depreciation expense to be able to put some of that back and do some fund balance reserve, something for a rainy day to have, there. And we did the rates to have a small fair rate of return. We look here, the table on 9 actually shows you, and it's something to mention in the summary, where your customers are allocated. How many of them live within the city of Greenup and how many of them are with the county. So you go over to 10, and this is our projected water rate expense for 3 years. We looked at your personnel, your health insurance, professional services, maintenance and supplies, which that would be your chemicals and any pipe, repairs and maintenance, utilities, and other expenses. And we also looked at your current debt service and what it would be to start your debt service in 2026 on your intake system. And then we started setting aside $75,000 a year to put away in depreciation. That something breaks, you'll have some money to replace it. Anybody have any questions so far? Or? Okay. So you go over 11, and we have what your current debt service is. You actually have interest rates from 2 to 2.27. We wish those were available now, but they're not. So, but the revenue bonds we had, we refinanced in 2012, and we had a significant savings, and we reduced the maturity rate by 8 years. And the debt service is actually decreased. It's $223,000 a year. So for a utility your size, right now you don't have a lot of debt service, even though we're getting ready to take it on. But we've paid down a considerable amount, and we refinanced it a few years ago at a considerably less rate. Saved $500,000 in interest. So we're right at, in the end of 2023, the city will owe $2 million to KIA and the Kentucky Bond Corporation. Depreciation is a source of internal cash, and like we talked about earlier, it's used for financing normal system replacements in a utility system. Cash generated by the recognition of non-cash expense, such as depreciation, is usually a source of internal financing. We're going to get you to the point where something breaks, you need a new truck, you can pay for it yourself. You don't have to pay the interest cost. Right now, since, we funded a few things this year, the cash balance is down to $600. But the city right now, without a modification of the rates, cannot self-finance life capital and structure and must resort to debt financing. We want to get you back to where you were. Page 12, I kind of covered it. I'm sure Richard has kept you apprised of, the shape of your water plant, and the amount, in addition to the water plant and the water intake, you all have a tremendous amount of tanks and pump stations that you have to maintain. So I know our main focus is, you have to be able to produce water, but we also have to be able to maintain the other assets that we have. So in addition to having the obsolete water plant, there's a lot of things out in the system that we must maintain and keep up. So, in the water treatment plant, it's obsolete. In addition to, having the sludge pond that we are spending a tremendous amount of money to have to keep clean, we have, some of you were on council when the mayor did the presentation, but the plant's lines are caked with caustic soda. And it's really, it takes down the amount of water they can produce. So we're, it's kind of a prayer. We've limped along and, we've managed to continue producing.
To say the least, it's a ticking time bomb. And you guys all have heard me say it before, at any point in time, and I hope that you've gone over there and you've talked to the chief water plant operator. The chemicals have done over the years, have done numerous failures, jobs, whatever you want to call it, to the infrastructure of the inside of the building itself. The steel's decaying. There's some temporary walls that are falling. The electricity, I can't say enough about the electricity other than I don't want anything to do with it, and I'm glad that we've got somebody that will, because it is awful. We had the floater go out again on Sunday, melted, and I sent out a group text to all of you on that. Without this, at any given time, we can go down and we may not be able to have a contractor to get us back up and running. And I know that we've got it projected out to 2026. And I will tell you that we may be revisiting this again sooner than 2026, because that's how bad it is. This isn't something that you can't push down the road any longer whatsoever.
It's not a want, it's a need.
It has to be done if you want to stay in the water business.
And take the electricity and the caustic soda, buildup, which is hard in the intake system. We also have a Division of Water and an EPA that keeps making these rules more and more stringent. And these stringent rules and these levels that we're going to have to make sure our water is good with cannot be done with a plant built in 1976.
And what we call those is unfunded mandates. They tell you what you're going to do, but they're not going to give you any money to help you get accomplished what they want you to accomplish. So it costs you as a citizen or us as a legislative body to abide by their rules and regulations without any help.
And if you don't, they put penalties on you.
They fine us, and trust me, I've been down there several different times, met with them. I will tell you right now that the agreed order has been lifted. The only agreed order that we were under has been lifted, and that was with the sludge pond. But as Michelle has talked to you guys about, we have spent thousands of dollars to get that lifted. If you drive over by there, you'll see temporary holding tanks where we dip the byproduct of making water out and put in those temporary containments, and then we wait for it to dry enough that we can haul it to a land, and obviously we've got the land permit from the Division of Water to be able to do that. Prior to that, we were having too many suspended solids in our holding pond because it was always too full. Division of Water finally decided that, warnings and just writing us up wasn't enough. So that's when I had to go downstate and sit there and take it, and then come back and come up with a game plan. And the last thing that they told me was more or less, either you're gonna fix it or we're gonna fine you $25,000 a day until it's fixed. So again, they have control.
Yes. And, you know, like keeping the sludge pond clean to their standards is a never ending chore. And it's a costly chore. And just without the sludge pond and the other things, they're getting more stringent on what the levels of the water could be with everything. So, you know, the plant, due to the changing current regulations and standards, in addition to the problems that it have, the feasibility of a new plant has increased exponentially. We have to have one. It's not a choice. So the proposed solution is to build a new treatment plant and intake from another location in Little Sandy. The new plant will be state-of-the-art and will allow the water utility to meet the continually more stringent and changing rules and regulations from the Division of Water. It will allow you to change its chemical treatment process. A new wastewater treatment plant will bring the city utility into compliance with the Division of Water, avoid penalties, be more cost-effective, and allow for future growth. Most importantly, it will provide your customer base with clean and constant water supply, even during the winter months. You all have an amazing distribution team and water plant team, because when those temperatures fall, it is increasingly hard to keep that water supply flowing. The new technologies and chemical processes will be more cost effective to produce water, resulting in reduction in chemical cost, utility cost, maintenance cost, and ultimately resulting in a lower cost per unit to produce. The new wastewater treatment plant will serve the community's needs for decades to come. So on page 14, we have proposed new rates. And we took into consideration these rates. It's 14, yeah.
I'm looking to Gil right quick.
Oh, okay, okay. The new rates are proposed to adequately provide for the system operating cost, debt service, depreciation, and fund bond reserves. The proposed minimum bill is $30.18 for inside city and $41.53 for outside city for 0 to 2,000 gallons, with a water usage with a decreasing unit cost as usage increases. We chose, and you know, with a lot of consultation with Lundy, I'm sure our multiple calls, is he wanted us to design this where we not only met the city's needs, that we did not burden the customer all at once. We know that, you know, the economy and your citizens and your customers, we phased in the rate increases over a 3-year period to get to the point where we can fund the debt service for the water intake. In fiscal year 24, the minimum bill for the city goes up to $30.18. And the $30.18 is an increase of $6.04 a month, or 19.86 cents a day for inside city customers. For outside city customers, it goes up $8.31 a month, or 27 cents a day. Because of the inflation and the expenses on chemicals, you know, 25% sounded like a lot, but it's $6 and $8, and I know that is still $6 and $8 for a household family, but you are providing water service to your citizens for $1 a day inside the city. And outside the city, you know, because there's a lot of mileage. There's a driving this water system. I know it takes about an hour and a half to get some places in it. So, which there's more cost associated to providing outside the city. But it's $41.53 or $8.31 a month.
And you also have to take in pump stations, the electricity that it costs to get it from the Greenup tank, let's say, to the head of Beachy, or the head of Little White Oak, or the head of Big White Oak, or to the Carter County line out 207.
And the chemicals get smaller as you go out through the system too. So it takes more chlorine because they have to be the same level an hour and a half from the plant as they do a mile.
And what you do in that aspect is each of the pump stations, Roger puts in chlorine feeders in the pump stations. So if the chlorine is dropping, then during the summer months, mostly during the summer months, is whenever they have to feed chlorine in the pump stations. Now, if you've noticed, 7 days a week, you'll see a truck over here early in the mornings. And what they're doing is by Division of Water Regulations, they have to go to the farthest north, south, east, and west points of our system and take chlorine samples. And those get recorded and sent into the DOW. And if they pull up to that site and that chlorine level is not what it's supposed to be at, then they have to start flushing to get that chlorine level back up immediately. So 7 days a week, north, south, east, and west, they're out checking.
In fiscal year 25, year 2, it goes up 10% to $33, and in fiscal year 26, year 3, it goes to $36. So it is still a very affordable utility, and we did some comparison to other cities to make sure that you all were pretty much in line. Yes, sir.
Okay, do you have a number as to what the average customer in the city, their usage is per month?
Most of your customers within the city, 55% of your customers will pay the $30.18. 55% of them are a minimum bill. And then you go to like 28% of them are in the 3,000 range. So the majority of your citizens are under 3,000 gallons, like 77%.
So we'd have to be a little bit careful about telling anybody that's when they ask us. At $6.04, that increase, that just represents the minimum usage.
It does, and the minimum usage in your all's case is the majority of your customers.
55%, right?
Yeah, and on someone with a 3,000 gallon household, which is another like 28%. I'm like Bruce, I'm digging from old rates here. Is going to be an additional $2.50.
So like $8.50 or something.
Yes, it will go to $8.50 range.
And that's roughly the majority of the other 45%.
Yeah, you have 55% that are a minimum bill, and you have another like 28% that's in the 3,000 gallon range.
Okay.
So what we did is we modeled this rate chart of how many people you had in each range to figure out what your revenue would bring in and what their bill would be.
That's what I mean.
How about commercial usage? Did you all look at that aspect on it? Commercial rates?
Commercial rates is in the same chart, and it will be, I think once you all adopt what you adopt, I think your big users, a phone call to them to look at, see what their bill will be. Your school system and the county would be a user, and the state of Kentucky, I think, would be another your bigger users. But there was like 12, 14 in that category at the end. There wasn't a whole lot of people that was over. Yeah, that was that. And we don't care to communicate with them, for they know, what their new water bill would be.
But it's in line with what's happening here.
Yes. And when you look at other cities, you are still in line or cheaper than that. And, one we didn't add to the list, we called several other, Huntington's for 3,000 gallons is actually $80. So, anybody have any other questions?
But those other cities, those are averages. That's not the minimum.
That is their monthly, yes,
That's the.
yeah,
Oh, it is?
yeah.
Okay, it says average monthly water bills, so that's,
We don't have the privilege of knowing what kind of customer base they have. Like with your citizens, we're a more elderly veteran community that, so a lot of ours are at the minimum. I wouldn't know that for like some of the other cities.
okay. So right now, that 3018, to say Russell in the city, that compares to their 3285, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And they're outside the city are a little lower, but they do not have the geographic challenge that you all have. They're outside the city is just,
Couple miles.
yeah, a couple neighborhood like that. You all have a extreme geographic layout. Your dad, Bruce, put it into, this stuck with me. He said if you took Greenup's water lines and laid them down, you'd be in Myrtle Beach.
Yep.
So that was like a good way to put it. And you all do an amazing job managing that with a small staff. You really do. Any other questions?
I would say at this same time, probably these other cities are looking at the same thing,
They are.
increases.
You all are probably a little ahead of the game because we've planned for the capital replacements, but they are going to have to do it because when your chemical costs have went up 60% and your pipe has doubled and your labor, the cost of labor has went up.
All right, I'm gonna cut her off just for a second and let Josh change out some batteries. We've got some technical difficulties going on. We won't be able to hear. So give us just a few minutes. Uncontrollable. You can't control the life of a battery. I bet. I don't know what they're gonna do with it.
You changing it all? Yeah. Not so far during the meeting.
Do all of them need to be active?
Yeah, they all started going out on me at the same time. Yes, you have to turn back on everybody. Sorry, guys, I don't mean to interrupt Charles' meeting.
All right. As long as the light's on, then we're good.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was easy enough.
Quick and easy.
Hit the easy button.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions on what we've covered so far? Mayor, would you like me to go over some changes in the ordinance?
Yes, please.
Okay. We have done a combined ordinance where everything isn't gonna be, in one place.
And if you don't care to back up a little bit and explain about previous ordinances, how many ordinances, how difficult it was.
As Lacey and Jeremy can attest, the ordinance has been so amended over the years. You have a little piece in this ordinance and a little piece in that ordinance. So, and we don't, it's hard to keep track what's the most current one. So, after having issues to figure out which one was the most current one a couple times, we decided to make a combo ordinance. It'll actually, you know, for you all as management and them as the ones that administrate it, they'll have everything in one place. So some of this stuff that's added in here has not been changed, but we're gonna repeal all those old ones and make this one a valid one. So we start off with the sewer fees. The sewer is something that we're gonna have to address because the sewer district more than likely is having the same problems with inflationary pressures as we are.
And let me add something to that right now before she gets into the sewer. And we do have the chairman sitting here that's on the joint sewer agency but they have been default in their loan with KIA for how long now?
Over a year.
Over a year. So we are looking at, and when I say the joint sewer agency, that's us and Wirtland that pays the fee. And then there was going to be Lloyd that was going to come on at some point in time, and that still may happen. We just don't know yet. I predict it will happen, but I think it'll be 2, 3, 4 years down the road. The joint sewer agency barely brings in, and I've reviewed everything from Ben Darling, the CPA that Steve sent me, that Ben has sent me. The joint sewer agency barely brings in enough money to survive at this point in time. Right now, they've roughly probably got about less than $50,000 in the bank, and they had
Liability insurance is paid for the plant, yeah.
yeah, their liability insurance come in at $20-some thousand. Their workman's comp come in at $3,000 some dollars. So there's going to be a couple of huge hits to the joint sewer agency. So I will tell you straight up that at some point in time, the joint sewer agency will have to have a rate increase. There is no doubt about it. Now with the KIA loan, Judge Hall and Eric Patton and his team are working very diligently to try to get the KIA loan forgiven. And if that happens, then that will take a huge burden off of the joint sewer agency. Right now, the only thing they have been paying on the KIA loan is the interest. They have not been making any principal payment on it whatsoever. KIA could actually come in and more or less set the rate at this point in time if they chose to. But there's new leadership. Things are headed in the right direction. But I will tell you that I do foresee some type of increase in our sewer rates coming eventually. The only way for that not to happen is one, that KIA loan completely gets done away with by a line item from the state legislator, and we get lucky and things up there don't tear up. And you know, mechanical things, they're going to tear up, and chemical costs are rising, like she's told us a couple of times already this evening. But we will be seeing, they will be coming eventually asking for a rate increase.
Because you're always going to have, and it's just not you all facing it. It is no planning that you all could have done, because you all have planned well. You all have paid cash for your engineering. You all have done well. But there's no utility system that is going to be exempt from higher utility bills, higher chemical cost, higher pipe, and higher labor.
Well, if you just read on the Daily Independence website, what was it, the Kentucky Power just went to the PSCC with like a 20% increase, something like 17-18% increase. So it's not just here. I mean, it's everywhere. And our problem is no fault to anybody. We've had 40 years plus or minus of no money put back into the infrastructure. So here we sit.
So we are trying to plan, and since we have them going effective January 2024, it's $1 increase per thousand. For 55% of your customers, it's gonna be a $2 increase, and it'll be a $3 increase for another 28% of them. But we're trying to put this in stages where it didn't hit everyone at once. But we're trying to adequately plan, because there is none of us that wanna go and say, when, they look at their expenses and have to raise, oh, we're gonna have to raise it $5 per thousand. We want to plan for that, cause we know it's coming. So the first page of the ordinance deals with the sewer. We do $1 per thousand increase January 1, 2024, and we do $1 again on 2025. So we're phasing in your sewer increases. And once the sewer, you all quit treating your sewer, all the expenses and the control went somewhere else. So you all have done a good job, and you all have done a good job managing to keep it as low as we have right now.
So the rates are going up on the water and sewer.
Yes, but the sewer will not be effective until calendar year 2024. And the second part of the sewer will be effective in calendar year 2025. Because in addition to paying the joint sewer agency, you have to pay someone to maintain your sewer lines and your pump stations. So, right now, we've ran it just for about the cost of paying the sewer bill and the person. But those lines need maintained, those sewer pump stations need maintained, and the electric bills are gonna go up. And he has to probably do some chemical treating locally,
He does.
to that also. So, yes, but we are phasing these in where they did not hit everybody at once. And in calendar year 2024, they will go up $1 per thousand. The second page, you actually have some sewer outside the city that, you all took over the Alpine sewer treatment years ago, which this cost you a lot more than your inside people. So it's a $2 rate increase per thousand, and $2 per thousand in 2025 for your outside city customers. Also, we go into, for sewer, we have tap fees if someone wants to add on, where you all can recoup your cost. And these have went up to the cost of the parts it takes to do the tap fee. Section 3 is not much changes, it's just adjustments. We're just like when we said we're gonna repeal the old ordinance, we had to put this section back in here. On page 4, it's water. And that is the rates that we talked to in there, and we have added an administrative and billing charge of $1 to them. But these will go up September 2023, September 1. July 1, 24 will be your next rate increase, and your third one will be 2025. So it was phased in over the 3 years. The first 3 charts you see are the charts for inside the city. The next 3 charts are for your customers outside the city. And outside the city also has a very high concentration of minimum bills. The minimum are $3,000. And it's a little less than inside the city. 2,000 to 3,000 is probably like 68%, 69%, but it's still a vast majority of customers. So this incorporates the rates. Basically from your study, we put them in the ordinance for you guys to vote on. So that's what these different rate charts are. On the study where it has the 3 years compared, this has the 3 years implemented. We also adjusted the tap fees, for water. And it was to recoup our cost for the parts and the labor for us to install a new person on the system. Where they can pay their part, coming onto the system. The water meter test fees, meter pits, water meter rereads, and the hydrant meter fees are basically just brought over from the last ordinance. We updated the security deposit since the water bills went up. We did change from 100 to 125, but we do still have the low-income elderly provision in here. Instead of the 19,500, we made it tied to HUDs for what they define low income, because as inflation and stuff went up, they raised that. That way you don't have to continually change your ordinance. So if someone don't exceed 40% of HUD medium income for Greenup County, they could actually, when they move in, get a reduced customer deposit of $75. Section 4, 5, 6, the penalty and interest section. Shut-offs are the same. We did increase the penalty for people turning on their own water. It's becoming more prevalent, and once a lot of them break your meter, and you have to go in and fix it. And they have discovered the previous penalty, you could turn on your own water and be fined cheaper than you could pay the turn-off fee. So we've upped that to make that, deter that as much as we can. And we've upped it where if they break something, you all will get your money back. And the rest is just administrative, saying the money is going for the utility system and cost and some of the ordinances that we repealed. Does anybody have any questions? I know this is a lot to take in. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Or if you go home and think of something, please feel free to contact us. We'll stay here as long as you want if you have any questions.
Do you have any way of estimating, like, the first increase is supposed to be, did you say August, is that right?
It'd be September 1st for the September bills. The ordinance will take effect upon adoption or readoption, I think is what it said. But these rate increases will, go out with the September bills.
That doesn't include the sewer, right?
No, the sewer does not go into effect until 2024 and 2025. And here's something else that they will announce soon, is Northeast Kentucky for the 5-county area has been awarded $1 million for the ARPA money. Other states didn't use it, so they've allocated it to Kentucky, and $1 million of it will go to the 5-county area. So any, people that are having problems with your utility bill, will have that $1 million available to them. And they do not have to be delinquent in it like they did last time. So that'll be some additional money for, people to tap into, even, customers that need it now. I've talked to Jeremy, he's gonna contact her and make sure you're all signed up.
I just had one more question.
Yes, sir.
So, in January, when both initial increases will go into effect by then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, do you have an idea of the average customer, how much that will increase their monthly bill,
Yes, for the average customer,
including sewer and water?
it'll be $8.50 and another $3 for sewer, so it'll be $11.50.
Okay.
Actually, we have discussed from the Joint Sewer Agency that $3 is really about a third of what we had discussed was needed. So at one point, we had even looked at projections of having to raise it $12. So that number is significantly smaller, and we did a lot of work cutting corners, cutting cost everything possible to keep that rate low, and I don't think we've changed the sewage rate in what, 3 years, Lundy? 4?
It's been a long
It's been a
time.
while.
Yes,
I can't
it has.
remember the exact date, but it's been
So-
a long time.
It's, I mean, it's been coming.
And
But,
we just knew it's coming, we have no idea, you know, what their finances would be, but we did wanna start the process to, you know, get them accustomed
mhm.
to paying more for their sewer too.
And I want you to be upfront with all of you guys, that this ordinance projected over a 3-year plan. Don't be surprised that 6 months, a year from now, that I'm not declaring an emergency and coming back to you guys with Stephen and the judge executive and our state representatives and various other people that our water plant's down and we need help. Because that's where we're at.
I was excited that you have the resource of Eric, maybe someone that can help you all
Eric's gonna
get more
come in
grants.
very handy. I'll be spending a lot of time with Eric, letting him get comfortable down there, and, hopefully we can work some money our way through some grants. But again, I want to stress to you guys, please go to the water plant, talk to Roy Riddle, just don't take my word for it. Go over there and look at it yourself, and you'll know how bad it is.
You know, and the intake system, I mean, it's just been a miracle. I remember your father and mine putting that together to get it to work, and never thinking it would last as many years as it has.
You talking about the floating intake?
Yeah,
Yeah, I built that.
yeah. I remember, you know, you all needing that as a little girl.
Well, it's been a temporary floating intake for 20-some years now.
Yeah, it's not very temporary, is it?
No. You all have your money's worth. You did good
Right.
work.
It'd surprise you what the total cost on that was back then,
Mhm.
compared to nowadays.
I
Yes.
guarantee it. So, does anybody have any questions for Tony or Michelle, or any more questions?
I don't have any questions for either one of them. I just wanna say something real quick. And it really doesn't really apply mostly, but I just kinda wanna get that out there. I don't know if anybody listened to the physical court meeting this morning, but I just wanna make everybody aware that they're proposing there's gonna be a property tax increase also. I mean, it has nothing to do with this right now, I know, but I just kinda, it just seems like everything is coming due about the same time.
I don't know what their rate is, but
It's,
it,
10 cent to 100, is what it's gonna go up to. It's not to exceed
Well,
I know they can only
on
do
the
4%.
property tax, on
Yeah,
the
it's
property
not
tax.
it's not a property tax rate increase. It was, what they had their first reading on this morning was they are starting their own, Greenup County
Ambulance
ambulance,
authority.
ambulance service.
Mhm.
So they are, implementing
An ambulance tax.
an ambulance
An
tax.
ambulance tax.
And what that does is, it means that, let's say I'm gonna use Big White Oak for an example. As of right now, if you live on Big White Oak and you call for an ambulance, you're not guaranteed an ambulance. You get whatever's left over. But Greenup, the city of Greenup, Russell, Raceland, Flatwoods, and the unincorporated area between Wordland and Raceland we have the ambulance taxing district. We already pay the tax, so we are guaranteed an ambulance. We have an ambulance board. The people out in the county have not been paying that. So we have already, the citizens in Greenup already pay that. So that will not be an additional cost to
It's not
anybody,
gonna cost us anymore.
no more to us.
Just for
No.
the
It's
rest,
just for the rest of
That's
them.
for the county residents, yes.
Yeah,
It will not-
I never understood that. Remember the gentleman that went to diabetic shock that night? Yeah, Tony and I were here working, and somebody pulled up, and we went and asked if we could help him. They were beating on the door, and his father was going into diabetic shock, and he lived 45 minutes away, so he drove him to Greenup for you to get help.
I've known people that have sat and our police officer is sitting back there in the back have waited on an ambulance out in the county for an hour before.
Yeah,
So it's a much needed service, but.
right. They said something about they use Portsmouth, some of the outlining areas use Portsmouth.
Yes, some of the, I believe, and I stand corrected, but I think Portsmouth may have an ambulance station somewhere down around South Shore. But the contract with the Greenup County Taxing District is with Patriot Ambulance.
Yes.
That contract comes up in November, so they'll be rebidding that as well. But what the county done was they implemented their first reading this morning for a 10 mil tax to start their own ambulance company, which in my opinion is great. If I lived out there, I'd want to be guaranteed an ambulance.
Yeah, your all's fire department, and Tony gave him Sprite, made him popped up a little bit in the fire department. Helped him, get an ambulance.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know then,
Yeah,
yes,
they won't
everybody
be-
needs access to have an ambulance come to their home.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs that.
So it won't be an additional tax to the residents
To
of
the
Greenup.
residents
It'll
that
be
already pay the taxes.
or to Flatwoods or anybody like, that's already in the tax district. It'll just be to the residents that do not pay it now.
Okay,
Really, over the last 3 years, we've been underserved anyway with ambulance services and everything. I mean, since Bell Farm and everything.
Yeah.
Just, so that's good.
well, that's good to know, cause like I say, seems like everything hits at the same time. Everything goes up usually the same time. When something's broke, something else breaks, you know how that goes. So I'm glad that was clarified, because my understanding was that I put down property tax for some reason that, Bobby Hall had said.
Property tax is limited to 4% on the amount of revenue that they get in the prior.
And then you have to do
Yeah.
a public hearing on
Yeah.
that.
Yes, okay.
Is there any other questions?
So if there's no more questions, I will ask someone if they want to hear the first reading of your new ordinance.
I'd like to hear it.
An ordinance of the City of Greenup, Kentucky establishing sewer and water rates, tap fees, installation charges, service charges, penalties, and interest, providing the penalty for the violation of this ordinance, and repealing conflicting ordinances and all amendments thereto.
That is your first reading of that ordinance. Once I talk to Tony and Michelle and get with Jeremy, we may have a special council meeting to have the second reading, depending on how long we think it will take to get the new rates implemented into our computer systems. So we may have another council meeting in the next week, week and a half, 2 weeks. So take this ordinance home with you, read it, look it over, take the water rate study, look it over, and then, once I decide, whenever I talk to Tony and Michelle and Jeremy, if we're gonna need a special meeting to get all this implemented into our computer systems, by the date that the September bills goes out, I'll let you guys know. But that's all that I have on my agenda, unless somebody else has something. I think I need a motion to adjourn.
I just have a few quick things, I always do. One of the residents had approached me, and I don't know who handles this. I don't know if it's the city or the county, but there are some benches behind the Greenup County Jail that, set like right on top of the water. It's like a hazard, if the kids get over there and sit on the bench, they're liable to go down in the water.
Yeah, those aren't city benches.
They're not city benches. Okay,
I don't know
so.
if there would be, I don't know if they're the physical courts or if they're the jails.
Might be the jails.
Who's
Okay,
there? I don't
yeah,
know.
that's why I say, a lot of times I'm not sure who's, responsible. So I like to bring it to you guys so you can tell me yay, nay, or whatever.
Yeah, it would either be the jail or the physical court, I don't know.
Okay, and also too, like, I guess on that intake valve down there, let's see, what's it called? The screen raised on the drain, that would be them too. It's the same area down behind the courthouse.
Screen raised on the,
It says behind the old courthouse, street drain needs the screens raised.
yeah, that's on our list to repair as well.
So, okay,
It
so
would
you
have
have
already
that.
been repaired, but there was there wasn't very good communication. The jail come in and done a lot of work there on the old boat dock landing.
Mm-hmm.
And, now we've had to rethink what we're gonna do with that. cause we don't wanna mess up what they've done as far as the rock and stuff that they've done there, but that's on our list of repairs.
Okay, so you don't have any, estimated time or whatever
No,
that would
not
be?
right now, no.
Okay.
I ask a question, please?
Sure.
On the new rates for the water in September, is that gonna be put on the water bill to let the citizen know in August your rates gonna go up in September?
If we can fit it on there adequately, with the verbiage that needs to be, cause we're limited on how much we can put out. But I'm hoping, I mean, we could also mail a letter out explaining if we needed to.
I think that would be good.
I mean, it's gonna be a shock
Yeah.
when.
That would be
I got my water
good.
bill in September, and I didn't know the rate was gonna go
Right.
up. So the citizens of Greenup, this is gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a totally surprise.
Right, I mean, we could do a letter and send out, I mean, that's a good point, and kind of explain our situation that we're in.
Yeah, I think that's.
What I want to stress to you guys most importantly is that doing nothing at this point in time is not an option, or we're not gonna have drinking water. It's just that plain and simple. It is that critical. I was out there Sunday, with my boat pulling in the floating intake. We went back out again yesterday to change it back out again yesterday. It is not a good situation at all. And these are the cards that all of us were dealt with and all of our citizens that were dealt with. And doing nothing, and our customers out in the county as well. Doing nothing is not an option.
And even taking for our water plant was perfect, it would still have to have a rate increase due to chemicals, AEP's increase, the pipe increase, and labor cost. You know, when you're starting to take unskilled labor and paying $15 an hour, someone with a class 3 and 4 water license, you know, could go make $25, $30 an hour. So we've had to not only deal with labor increase that's come as a result of this, AEP, chemicals, pipe, other supplies, in addition to our challenges at the water plant. Cause the utilities use so much on the pumps and the water plant, the electricity bill alone is, you know, a good expense. And thank God they have planned with the water plant and, you know, have paid for all the engineering and the cost up to now where you're ready to replace it. And you don't have to add that onto it, but it's everything.
My worst fear is getting a phone call saying that it can't be fixed. And we've been close, a couple of different times.
And, you know, and our backup source has been Canonsburg, but Canonsburg buys from other utilities, and they're not always able to provide to you all. So to provide, you know, constant water to your citizens and your customers, you all need an adequate plant to do so.
Let's say your system went down completely right now, and one, you're not gonna be generating any revenue because you're not gonna be selling any water. You take from the city of Greenup out Route 1, you'll be able to put water in the Argonaut tank, the Cherokee tank, and maybe a little bit in the North Fork tank. The rest of our water system is completely 100% shut down. Nobody in Lloyd, nobody out Co-Branch, nobody out on Route 7 in that area, they're all without water. And then you have no revenue coming in to pay Canonsburg's water bill. And I will tell you this, and she can confirm, what we pay Canonsburg a month, we have pretty much been taking a loss. Every time we turn on Canonsburg's water rate, our water system, because we've had problems, we've ate the cost. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. Canonsburg buys their water from the city of Ashland. It's a trickle-down effect. And we've also been fortunate that when we do have problems, that Ashland hasn't had problems, that Cannonsburg hasn't had problems, and they've allowed us to turn the water on. If if Ashland has a major leak, and when I say major leak in Ashland, we've got 10-inch pipe, they've got 24 and 36-inch pipe in the ground. When they have major leaks up there, they just turn everybody off. They have no choice. They can't keep up until they build their tanks back up. So we've been very fortunate that when we have needed Cannonsburg and Ashland, that they have worked with us. There have been a few times that I've had to beg, call Tony, hey, call your mayor, call somebody, I need water. But it's a challenging situation, and I know it's gonna be a burden on our water customers, but the burden definitely outweighs of turning on your water spigot and having clean water come out. So, cause it's getting to the point to where one of these days, you're just not gonna have it.
$30 a month is still a bargain to have water every time you get to your faucet.
Well, that's a minimum, but you've got a higher bill, some people still pay a lot higher than that.
Well, 30 and 33, mathematically, from the study of the bills, 78% are getting it for under $35, even with the increase. That's a study of their bills in there. So 75% of the users are 3,000 gallons and less. We took that data from, their billing system bills that they sent out. So, yes, there is some that use more.
Buddy, I know I've been in this position for like 6 months now. And I think every month that we've had a meeting, at one time or another, you've brought this same subject up.
I've been bringing it up for 10 years.
It's like crying wolf. But the only other question I had was, do we have an idea with these rates that are obviously a necessity? It's no, like you said, there's no choice. We got no choice. And so, do we have like a projected target that the actual physical improvements would start taking place in that, like, is that intake, is that the first thing?
That will be the first step, is to leave our water plant up and running, construct the new intakes, and take the new intakes to our water plant. And then, while construction is going on the water plant, we'll still operate under the old water plant, as long as it's still hanging on. And then, once we get the new water plant built up, then we will just take the new intakes and run them up to US 23 and tie into the new plant.
Like, what, do you think that would actually physically start within the next calendar year?
With the projections that we have now, no. Would I like for it to? Yes, but there would be more of a demand of more money on our customers to be able to do that.
But we're already behind.
Yes.
Obviously,
We're-
right?
Yes, we are behind the 8 ball, yes.
And this study does allow them to start the intakes, because the
I thought
depth-
he was talking about the plant.
Yeah.
Just an intake,
Yes, we can start the intake process. I thought you was talking about the plant.
just the whole thing, so we can tell people,
Yes.
hey, here's where your money's going.
Yes, and we're, like she said, we're very fortunate. We've already gone through, the plans. We've already been approved by the Division of Water. We've already acquired some land. We've got one, maybe two pieces of parcels that we've got to, purchase. That will be the first thing. And, once this ordinance gets enacted, then I will turn his office over on acquiring the last 2 pieces of property. And that will start the process.
Can I interrupt? I'm
Sure, go
truly
ahead.
sorry. Can I excuse myself? My wife got held over at work and I have a child
Sure.
that's sitting down waiting
Yep,
on her dad
absolutely.
to come get her.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, guys.
No problem. We've still got a quorum, so we're still in good shape.
I know over the last 6 months, there's been 3 or 4 meetings we've had that there's been a water distribution issue.
Oh,
from,
yes.
you know, and I mean, if that's happening every month, I mean, it's, like you said, a matter of time. I
Well,
mean,
nobody wants to pay more,
Yeah.
but you wanna turn your faucet on and water come out.
Yes.
Clean
right.
water.
You don't know what it's worth until you don't have it.
Yeah.
That's what my grandmother said.
Yeah, when you don't have it, then you know what it's worth.
If I could make a comment,
Sure.
the area that my mother lives in, she pays a little less than $20 more than what you're gonna pay in 2025, and there's a constant boil water advisory, and the city has no structure set in place to really take care of it, and they're constantly trying to catch up. So you can't turn that water on and just drink it, or you run it through a filter and it'd be so, there's issues. Since I first came to this, area, I've been impressed by this little town, and that's just the truth. About what things are, you know, really, I know you're in jam, but it seems like you're ahead when you know other areas are having some issues.
It's come a long way, cause years ago, every time you turned around, we got a notice about our water. I mean, I had stacks of bills that had notes on them, you know. So, yes, it's come a long way.
A long ways from where we were. But again, and I promise it's gonna be the last time I say it tonight, is that at any time, and when I get the phone call, trust me, the police is gonna be knocking on your all's doors as well. When she goes down and the contractor says, hey, you're done, I can't get it back up and running, then that's how dire it is. And I think you guys are fully aware of that because we've had talks about it, so. But that's all that's on the agenda. Does anybody else in the community have, or anybody else in the audience have anything to say? Any council members?
So the intake construction could maybe start for
It
the
will be
years of-
after the ordinance is implemented, after we start getting some revenue in, then I will turn Stephen's office loose on acquiring some more property, and then we will start the process of the intakes. Now, before I start the process on the intakes, I also want to get with Eric, Bobby's new hiree from FiveCo that spoke, and see what, or if there is any monies out there that are available to us. Up until present day, there has not been. Since he has been merging from FiveCo to the county, maybe there's something that's available that I don't know about. But it's just a must. You gotta do it, or we're not gonna be in the water business anymore. It's just that simple. Anybody else have anything? So I will get with Jeremy and Lacey and Tony and Michelle and figure out the billing part of it, and you may be getting a notice of a special council meeting in a week, maybe 2 weeks. So, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call.
John Norman,
Yes.
Doretha Hill,
Yes.
Mark Harris,
Yes.
Bruce Mance,
Yes.
Jamie Gillum.
Yes. Thank you all.